Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com.
This hour on the X Zone. From the ancient wisdom of sacred fire to the mysteries of spiritual awakening, healing, intuition, and transformation, our guest has dedicated her life to helping others reconnect with the deeper truths hidden within themselves and the universe around them. Joining us tonight is Cerridwen Fallingstar, founder of Heart of Fire, a spiritual teacher, healer, and guide whose work explores the power of personal transformation, sacred connection, energy, ceremony, and the awakening of human consciousness. In a world filled with uncertainty, fear, and distraction, could the answers we seek already exist deep within us? And are we standing on the threshold of a new spiritual awakening? Tonight we journey beyond the veil and into the heart of the fire. Now, here is the host of the X Zone radio and TV show, Rob McConnell, on the X Zone Broadcast Network, the CanCom Broadcast Network, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, and affiliates worldwide. The X Zone is on the air.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
They say Mandela died in prison back in 1983. Yet history books keep telling us he lived to set men free. How could millions all remember a world that never was? That single strange collective memory started all the buzz. Now people talk of timelines, worlds colliding in the night, tiny cracks in human memory or dimensions out of sight. From children's books to movie lines and logos rearranged, something in the fabric feels familiar, yet has changed. We're shifting through the cracks tonight, searching for what's real, trying to understand the things our memories still feel. Are we living parallel lives in worlds just out of phase? Or is the human mind rewriting yesterday's old days?
Welcome back to the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and for the next 2 hours, I'm your host and your guide as together we will cross this time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we come to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on the CanCom Broadcast Network and your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, that broadcast us on the AM dial at 1220 throughout southwestern Ontario. And, of course, they also stream us around the world on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, and on all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. My guest this hour is Cerridwen Fallingstar, www.theheartofthefire.com. And Cerridwen, welcome back to the X Zone. How have you been?
Thank you so much, Rob. I'm so glad to be here again and to hear your beautiful voice.
Oh, thank you so for that.
As you know, we south of your border are having a bit of a hard time right now. Our government is attempting to become a fascist government, and so I'm spending a lot of time out on the streets demonstrating and protesting, and also writing and calling my representatives and urging them to work a little harder to stop the takeover and get us back into a more democratic state.
I my thoughts and prayers are with each and every one of you in the United States who feel the way that you do and the way that we do up here in Canada. And we miss our neighbors to the south. We miss spending time with them. We miss spending our vacations down there. And we hope that one day soon all the Trumpisms will be abolished and things will get back to being the way they used to be.
Yes, or even better.
Or even better. That's true.
Even better, yeah.
Cerridwen, for listeners meeting you for the very first time, who are you? And, I mean, beyond the public persona.
Well, and the public persona is pretty much the same as the private persona. I'm a witch and a priestess. I've been teaching magic since I was, well, let's see, it's been 50 years. Okay, this dates me, but yes, I started very young, and I've been doing it for 50 years now. And I have published 5 books during that time. I have taught many year-long apprenticeship programs and graduate apprenticeship programs, which I often refer to as another fine year at the witch hatchery, as I try to bring more people of power into the world, and set them loose to do their good, and to many of my students have gone on to become powerful teachers themselves, or healers, or followed their own path, and that, of course, makes me very happy.
Cerridwen, are you finding that more and more people are turning to, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but the alternative religious philosophies compared to the established ones?
Yes, of course. One of the things that is happening, people are very attracted to paganism, often for a couple of reasons. One, it promotes equality between women and men.
Right.
It is also, paganism is, kind of an umbrella term for all of the pre-Christian, pre-patriarchal religions that existed all over the world and that still exist in many parts of the world. And so it is also something that celebrates diversity, that celebrates, say, ethnic differences. And that's another reason people embrace it. People embrace it because it is sex positive. It does not say that sex is sinful. It says that it's actually part of the path to power, that intimate contact is a path to enlightenment, a path to power, as with Tantra and other traditions of that sort, like the Cherokee Chulaki Kadoshka.
Now, Serge, when your work blends spirituality, healing, and personal empowerment, how do these elements connect for you?
I think, where, I used to say in my apprenticeship program, I would sometimes say, they came for the power, they stayed for the food. and of course, what I was talking about there was not just the fact that we brought wonderful potluck meals to share. I was talking about was the food, the nourishment, and that often when people start on a path to power, the idea of power is limited to our patriarchal worldview of power over. But when you explore it and you start experiencing power from within and power with, meaning having power with the other beings of the planet, you go out into nature and suddenly you realize everything's paying attention. Everyone knows you're there. The trees are awake. The birds are awake. Everyone's noticing and present. And when you get present, it's a whole new ball game. I always say, everyone in the forest looks at you when you get present and goes, "Hey, we got a live one," and they get excited. It's like, "Whoa, there's an awake human. Hey, let's talk to him." You become, when you have power with, you start experiencing that your power is that power of creation that's within.
And you're part of something greater.
All of it. You're part of something greater. And that is a much more, it's a divine power that feels a whole heck of a lot better than the sad little power over games that we see being enacted in our very unhealthy culture.
Cerridwen, what does the name the Heart of the Fire symbolize in your teachings and life philosophy?
Well, my first book is called The Heart of the Fire. It's a historical novel about witchcraft in 16th century Scotland. And again, it's that idea of looking into, past the surface and into the deeper place of what's there. The first thing you may think on seeing a fire is, ooh, it's scary, it's hot, it could burn me. Yikes. And that's all very true and important to notice. And at the same time, there's something deeper. When my son was 6 years old, one time he was watching the fire, and he said, Mom, have you ever noticed that whenever fire shifts, it benefits? It never smothers itself. It always changes for the better. And I had never noticed that, but my 6-year-old pointed it out to me, and it's true. The fire knows how to shift, to give itself more oxygen, to change for the better. It is a great teacher in that way. So it was also saying, to get to our power, we have to face what happened. We have to face that the witches were burned, that anywhere from hundreds of thousands to potentially millions of people were burned during the witch hunts that lasted off and on for 300 years in Europe. And this is what destroyed white people's connection to our spirituality, white people's connection to the earth. After we had killed our own teachers, we then went off to dominate and kill everyone's teachers, everyone's connection. And this is something that we have to face and heal in ourselves so that we can once again be part of our community of life.
How would you describe your spiritual practice to someone who has never explored alternative spirituality before?
Well, I had a friend, Alison Harlow, one of my teachers, one of my elders, she said, I practice magic exactly the way my ancestors did 60,000 years ago. I make it up. And that's what I do. I make it up. I feel into the energy, and I have learned how to move with energy. And if you really want to do magic, at first you'll be working from scripts and all that. But when you get a little more secure and a little more experienced, then you learn how to move with the flow of energy. And then things start happening that are really quite extraordinary, quite amazing, things that you could never have made happen, but that you allow to happen by getting yourself into a certain mindset. So I would say, in my tradition, we cast a circle. That is to say, we create sacred space. We call the 4 directions: the east, which is air; the south, which is fire; the west, which is water; and the north, that is earth. We call above and below the goddess and the god, and we call the center. When we have established our sacred space, in other words, it's like a portable church. It's like a do-it-yourself church that you can put down anywhere you are. Then we start doing whatever the magic is that we've decided.
Cerridwen, I hate to interrupt you, but I do have to take my break. Please stand by. Great having you back with us here in the X Zone. I look forward to sharing the rest of my hour with you, so please stand by.
So much.
X Zone Nation, our guest this hour is Cerridwen Fallingstar. Her website, www.theheartofthefire.com. We'll both be back on the other side of this break as we continue on the CanCom Broadcast Network and your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, streaming us at classic1220.ca and broadcasting us live throughout southwestern Ontario on AM 1220.
We're shifting through the cracks.
When the moon bleeds black on All Hallows Eve, whispers crawl through the dead oak leaves, candles flicker in the graveyard's bread, calling spirits back from death. The witches are awake tonight, dancing around the firelight. Spells are cast, the veil is thin. Let the wicked feast begin. Screams will echo through the sky. You'll hear them laugh before you die. Run if you dare, make no mistake. The witches are awake.
Exonation, Cerridwen Fallingstar is our guest this hour. Her website is www.theheartofthefire.com. And I'm sorry I had to interrupt you as you were describing the circle, and there was north, south, east, west, and in the center, and that's where we dropped off, was the significance.
Yeah,
and
I was just saying that after that point, you would just do whatever magic you came to do, whether it was to celebrate. We just had the holiday of Beltane, which is May Day.
Yeah.
So we just had our big Beltane celebration. And, or you might have come together, for some specific healing or, whatever it is that you want to do. You want to go on a trance journey. I do a lot of trance journeys with people, which is putting people into a hypnotic state. And we can, a bunch of people can go together. It's really fun to have, say, 8, 10, 20 people, and we all go on a journey to the same place at the same time and start seeing the same things.
How do you do that? How do you get 8, let's use the number 8 people to go into the same hypnotic trance, and they all are experiencing the same thing?
Yes.
Wow.
You start with, putting everyone down in the same way. So usually I will take people on the rainbow clouds. So in other words, we start with a red cloud, which is the first color, the first chakra, and we move down the colors till we get to the violet cloud. Then we step off the violet cloud into whatever realm we have, in advance chosen to go to. Let's say we wanted to go to the Temple of Love and talk to some love deities about what to do about our love lives, So then we would all be there at the temple and we'd start describing the temple. And what you will notice is, one person, you will just have noticed that here comes a white unicorn running towards us. And someone else will say, I see a white unicorn running towards us. So you realize, whoa, we really are at the same place at the same time. We're seeing all the same things and hearing all the same things. And it's my favorite thing to do. I just love going into trance with people. It's really a fun enterprise, and you learn all kinds of interesting things that way too.
With all the experience that you have gathered over the years doing what you do, Cerridwen, why is it that witchcraft and Wicca has, up until now, had such a negative, people look at it as something sinister, something evil? Why the bad rep?
Well, it's, for the same reason that, many people in Nazi Germany thought that Jews were killing Christian babies and using their blood to make matzah bread.
Control.
Right? It's because they were being programmed by the Nazis to think that. Although that particular calumny was much before the Nazis, it was something the Christians were saying about Jews. And when the Christian people took over in Europe, they couldn't exactly say, well, the pagans and the witches are wonderful people, but we want you to come to our church and not their church. They had to say, no, they're evil, horrible people. They're not worshiping God. They're worshiping the devil. In other words, if you're trying to defeat another group, it's a lot easier to do it by, lying about them and just saying horrible things about them. So, I sometimes say to people, well, imagine if the Nazis had won in World War II, what do you think people would think about the Jews now? And it's like, well, unfortunately, the Christians did win the war against the pagans in Europe. And so that's why the story of the witches being the scary people dominated, instead of that the people who burned people alive were maybe the really scary people in this story.
And the people that did the burning of the witches are looked at as the good people instead of the bad people. I've never understood the mentality behind all of this.
And it's also, it's fear of the feminine, the old ways, center around the mother goddess. And that shouldn't be a very scary image.
No.
But it was generally a very comforting image in all of the previous cultures. Even the dark goddess, the grandmother, who led people into death, was seen as, a loving grandmother who was just taking you off to rest, and then you'd be back and reincarnated later, and it would be fine. It really wasn't terrifying, but that changed as some of our mindset changed. People started thinking in more, is it good or is it bad? Is it black or is it white? Is it male or is it female? Is it right or is it wrong? Is it up or down?
Yeah.
Hot or cold? When we started using the binary for everything, then people started, seeing everything as well. It's if one of these things is good, the other one has to be evil, instead of that there might simply be two different ways of looking at the world. And so it's just been an unfortunate consciousness shift. And I believe that we're now in the process of shifting again into something that I think will be more integrated, where the right and left hemispheres of our brain will be working together in a much better way, and we'll be able to hold a lot more truth instead of seeing everything as black and white.
Something
That's
positive to look forward to.
I hope so. I think we have to have that. We have to imagine for ourselves a world in which, there's more love, there's more compassion, there's more critical thinking, there's more ability to sort out fact from fiction, and just more ability to tell what is a good thing and what is not so helpful, and that sometimes that requires some thought. For instance, in the beginning, when I first became involved in Wicca, there were many people who were saying, oh, it's okay for people to have sex with adolescents because that's what people did in the older cultures. And I was one of the people very early on who's like, no, no, those are cultures, that you can't just cherry pick from those.
That's right,
cultures. And say, oh, we're going to take this piece, because it just doesn't apply anymore to our current situation. So yes, sex is good and sacred, but not if it's used in certain ways. It's not sacred where there's force. It's not sacred where there's no, where you're not hearing no for an answer. It's not sacred when adults are taking advantage of children. So it's like being able to see it, in a more nuanced way. Sometimes it's not all one thing or all the other thing. We have to, it's like, yes, the relationship between mother and child is sacred. It's beautiful, but not if it's forced. Not if a woman is forced to have children and has no choice. Now the beauty has been taken from it. So it's having that nuance of, getting ourselves off of the black white, yes or no rubric, and into something more sensitive and more paying attention to all the different parts.
Many people today feel very disconnected and spiritually exhausted. Why do you think that's happening now?
I know in my country right now we're having tough times. One of my teachers, Malidoma Somé, who was from Burkina Faso in West Africa, said in his tribe, they have a saying, when good meets evil, evil makes a war. And that is what is happening right now, is that as we have been making progress, for women's rights, for minority rights, for religious rights, for the rights for people who have all sexual orientations. As we have been making this progress, some people have felt very threatened by it, and they're fighting very, very hard to go back to 16th century, 17th century. They don't want this progress. They want to go back to, the white heterosexual males are running everything. Everyone else is essentially a slave.
Well, geez, haven't they seen by now that the males aren't doing that great of a job? When I look throughout history, and I have said this over 35 years doing this show, women make better decisions and should be, and this is my opinion, leading countries. You look at the royals throughout Great Britain. The queens have always made the country stronger. When you look at, even not so long ago in the United Kingdom, you had Margaret Thatcher. She did a fantastic job. So I'm one of the...
I didn't like her politics so much, but I'll tell you a funny story about that. I was in Britain at a party, and this little 2-year-old boy was running his toy fire engine across the rug, and an older woman said, "So, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And he's like, "Firefighter." And she says, "Oh, what about Prime Minister?" And he looks at her in horror and he says, "That's a woman's job." And I said, "Okay, one for you, Maggie Thatcher." I mean, I wouldn't have voted for her, but hey, she broke the glass ceiling, and some progress was made. So yeah, I think, you know, something if we're going to get back to matriarchy, we really need a lot more women in power. And of course, not all women are going to be wonderful at it, and some men aren't going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
But really looking at, you know, one of the differences between men and women in general, of course there are exceptions, is that men are very good at laser-like focus. They're very good at focusing on one thing to the exclusion of all other things. And this is a very, very useful ability in many situations.
I would say that most men. But if you're looking at the present president of the United States, he's all over the map.
Yeah, well, definitely not that one. No.
Yeah.
But you know, but in terms of, you know, a strength, you know.
Yes.
And whereas women, they think about many different things at the same time, and politics is all about thinking about all sorts of different people and all these competing needs and how you're going to work it out for all the different people involved. The way that women are always thinking about, how am I going to make everyone happy in my family?
Yeah.
How am I going to get this person to talk to that person? How am I going, you know, that women's minds work in this much more making a web, making all these connections, and that this is really kind of the skill set that you need in a politician, is someone who can think of many things simultaneously and draw the connections between all these different things. So I think in general, the female mind is just a little better geared for that. And the problem is, we've been thinking about in patriarchy, politics is all about power. We need to start talking about politics as if it was just social housework, like just really so disgusting, only a woman would do it. I mean,
all right, stand by. We've got to take our break at the bottom of the hour. X-Zone Nation, Cerridwen Fallingstar is our special guest, www.theheartofthefire.com. And we'll both be back on the other side of the short break as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the CanCom Broadcast Network, and your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, that get us on the AM radio dial throughout southwestern Ontario and even into some of the parts of the United States. www.classic1220.ca if you'd like to stream us. We'll both be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away.
Before you die, run if you dare, make no mistake, the witches are away. Inside this failing body, I'm still me. Morning comes before I'm ready, pain already at the door. Legs feel heavy, vision blurry, can't move like I moved before. I shuffle down another hallway, counting every careful step. Back and hips scream like thunder, but there's still fire inside my chest. They see the chair, the length is slowing. They see the naps I sometimes need, but they don't feel the silent battle or what it takes to simply breathe. MS has been my shadow soldier, marching with me all these years. And sometimes when the world keeps pushing, I break alone behind my tears. Inside this failing body, I'm still me, still a heart that loves so endlessly, still a mind that dreams at 3 a.m., still the same soul I've always...
And welcome back. Cerridwen Fallingstar is our special guest. And Cerridwen, what role does nature play in healing emotional and spiritual wounds?
Oh, yeah, I think, you nature is that sovereign healer. I mean, nature is our mother, she's kind of the original mother. And whatever relationship you have with the biological mother who birthed you, you can always go out in nature and feel that embrace of the mother, who is the nurturing and healing mother. And I do think that's that's one of the problems with living in cities but even in a city, just go to a park. There'll be enough nature, even in a park, to have a healing experience.
Just take your shoes off, your socks off, and walk on the grass. Hug a tree.
Right. Walk on the grass.
Smell
If there's
flower,
any water, put your hands in the water and let it run over your hands. Look around for some birds. Ask for a sign, and you'll always get one.
We need to get back to basics.
Yeah. It's we are. It's natural for us. Well, obviously, nature and natural. To have this intimate connection with the earth, but we just sometimes forget about it because we are all on our devices and being pressured to work and produce, and instead of just being and breathing.
How important is intuition, and how can listeners begin trusting their own inner voice?
Well, you can start taking some notes and just take those notes on when you were right and when you were wrong, and see if you can notice a pattern. Like often, for instance, when people are upset, they're more likely to be wrong. This is why if people are trying to get you into a cult of some sort, they will try and push you off your center. They'll keep trying to get you off center so that you feel insecure and need validation from the outside. And that's one of the techniques that they will use. So if you can get centered, chances are pretty good you can know what is happening in any circumstance. So practicing being able to take a breath, to detach, just say, okay, emotions, I'm not getting rid of you. We're just setting you aside just for a minute, just for a sec here. You sit over there, and now I'm going to be clear. And then see what comes to you in that moment of clarity. Once you've again, you're going to deal with the feelings later. Feelings aren't the enemy, but they can really get in the way of you being able to know what's really true in the moment.
Have you personally experienced moments of transformation that completely changed your worldview?
Yes, I probably have many times in the world of magic. Certainly, in terms of what is possible. What is magic, and can it really work? Those questions have been answered for me in some fairly amazing ways. When I was young, one of the first circles I cast it was the very first one I cast by myself, was out in the woods at night. And as soon as I'd cast the circle, a bear walked all the way around the circle and then off in the other direction. And I was like, whoa, hey, this stuff really works. This is pretty good. This bear knows exactly where my circle is, and walked all around it. I had another experience just a year or two later with my coven, where we were at the beach and we had cast a circle and the tide started coming in. Of course, we were too young to have figured out, oh, maybe you should check the tide tables. We hadn't done that. So the tide was coming in and it started coming around the circle, like bigger and bigger. And finally it came all the way around the circle and touched in the back. In other words, there was no water in the circle itself. It had come all the way around us, leaving the center of the circle dry. And then we dismissed the circle, and the next wave came in and just virtually knocked us all over and took everything off the altar.
My goodness.
So I've seen some things that are very, I know that energy is real. I know that magic is real because I have the experiences all the time that show me that when I'm in the groove, there's really no limit to what amazing thing might happen next.
What exactly would you have on your altar?
Usually we have something that represents each of the four directions that I talked about earlier. We might have an athame, which is the witch's knife. That is what you might use to cut the circle. Notice we cut the circle. We're not cutting anybody's throats. Don't panic. And then there's the wand, which is usually seen as the element of fire. And we have a chalice, which represents the water, and usually a pentacle or a crystal representing the earth. And of course, there could be all sorts of different things representing those four things. And then, of course, there's whatever might be seasonal. Maybe you're having a seasonal ritual, so that might involve grapes. If it was for the harvest festival, or it might involve Easter eggs if it was for the spring equinox, or et cetera and so forth. So that varies from time to time.
Fascinating. In your opinion, what is the major difference between spirituality and organized religion?
It's not that there's anything wrong with being organized. I mean, things work better sometimes when you organize a little bit. But I think maybe what you're talking about there is the difference between, spirituality and patriarchal religion as it's being practiced now. Patriarchal religion is very much all about top down. It's about having authority figures. It's authoritarian religion. It's saying you have to listen to the priest or the minister, and they know what's true and you don't. It asks people to give up their own inner knowing and to accept a dogma, to accept something written in the book, something that somebody else tells you. And spirituality teaches you, if it's truly that, is teaching you how to feel it for yourself, how to feel your own truth, how to know what is right in every circumstance, how to work as equals with other people in a circle, or perhaps how to meditate and to get your answers in that way to have an experience completely solo or on your own. So it's about getting the information from within rather than getting the information from without.
You speak about personal healing. Can unresolved trauma affect someone spiritually as well as emotionally?
Oh, of course. And that's true for absolutely all of us. We are in, as I say, really a post-apocalyptic society where the older civilizations were brutally destroyed. And so many people have been brutally murdered. We all have trauma in our ancestral background. We all have it in our blood and in our bones. So even if you had a quote unquote happy childhood, the mythical happy childhood, you're still going to be carrying trauma from just being here in this world after all of these things have transpired. But spirituality, again, it's best to approach your trauma. And I would say go to therapy. You can go to AA or some of those kind of groups are very good, especially if you feel like, well, I don't have money. You're bound to be addicted to something. So check out a group, learn how to use the steps. That's one way to approach things. And hopefully find a spirituality that encourages you, again, to heal yourself, to love that inner child who is harmed and wounded, and to become a mother and a father to that child. And that will again then put you on the path to being an actual adult in this world. And we really need more adults.
What is the significance of sacred fire in ancient traditions and in your own work?
The fire is, we see it as being the element of the South.
Okay, the South.
And the
all right.
fire is seen as transformation.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at, how you build a fire and you make heat, it makes energy. And so we see it as the transformative aspect. And we also see it as, enlightenment. Fire casts light, fire makes light. So being able to see more clearly is also one of the gifts of fire.
How hard is it for someone who may be listening tonight and after hearing you talk about paganism and witchcraft, they say, geez, I'd like to become a pagan or I'd like to join a coven. How hard is it for someone to become a witch?
It can be a little bit challenging. You have to look around in your area, see if you can find some people who are having, say, open ceremonies, open rituals. Go to some of those rituals, see if you like those people, if you think you trust those people. As with anyone else, exercise some caution before you trust people. They shouldn't be asking you for a lot of money. I mean, if they're teaching classes, yes, it's fair to ask for something in exchange for the class, but the you shouldn't be giving them your credit cards or anything like that. Be careful. Do they seem ethical? Do they seem like they're on your wavelength, et cetera, and so forth? And it can be challenging because people often don't want to bring new people into a coven because the new person is inexperienced and they want to keep moving at the level of experience that they're at. So you may have to go through a class or through some sort of teaching situation in order to, become well versed enough for people to really want to work with you, because you have, you understand how it works and you have something to bring to the circle. But just keep looking. If this path is meant for you, something will open up.
All right. This information is for the people that are in the province of Ontario. There are people calling homes in Ontario that are claiming to be with Bell Canada, and they're saying that they'd like you're getting an upgrade in your router. But in order to get the upgrade, you need to go to your computer or your laptop and log into Google Chrome, and they'll give you a website. This is a scam, Exo Nation. If this happens to you, number one, do not do anything. Hang up the phone and call your local law enforcement agency in Ontario. Let them know what happens. Because what they will do, in fact, is give you a URL that will give them all the information from your computer, including your bank information, credit card information, and you will be scammed left, right, and center. So please be wary. Bell Canada will not call you to get this information. Bell Canada will not call you and ask you to go to Chrome website and give you a URL. This is a scam. Do not give them any information. But once you hang up, please call your local law enforcement agency, and if possible, give them the telephone number of the people who called you. I'll be back on the other side of this very short break as we wrap up this hour here in the X Zone. Whatever you do, don't go away. We'll be right back.
Late night signals whisper through the sky, stories of the unknown drifting by, from shadows deep to stars above. The truth and mystery, what we dream of. From a humble start on AM air, a voice in the night reaching everywhere. St. Catherine's heard that distant tone. Rob McConnell's voice, the X Zone. Through the years, through the miles, through the questions and the trials. Now we're back on 12:20 a.m. Classic sound, it begins again. CFAJ, your hometown radio, where the truth and the strange still flow. From Ontario skies to the great unknown, with Rob McConnell on the X Zone.
And welcome back. Cerridwen Fallingstar is our guest this hour. Her website is www. Do you have your pencils and paper ready? Okay. www.theheartofthefire.com. Cerridwen, what role do dreams play in spiritual communication and self-discovery?
Oh, dreams are a wonderful way to get information. It's good before you go to sleep at night. Make sure you've got a little notebook and a pen or pencil, in your bed or just beside your bed on your nightstand. And then, as soon as you wake up, start writing down your dreams, because otherwise they'll disappear usually pretty quickly. But yeah, it is a great way for your subconscious to talk to your conscious, and just be aware that often it'll be using symbols, that what you're dreaming is probably not literal. Occasionally it will be, but usually it's going to be a little more symbolic.
It's not uncommon for people to fear change. How can spiritual work help someone to move through their fear?
Well, essentially, my second my second coven, we called ourselves the Holy Terrors, because we recognize that there's a kind of fear that means run away, but there's another kind of fear that means, whoa,
Get
we are
excited,
right
yeah.
on the edge of a big change, and if we take one more step, things are never going to be the same. And that's where sometimes we have to take that step into the unknown and face the facts that we don't really know what's going on, and that we need to be learning as quickly as we possibly can so that we can get to that next evolutionary level.
What happens inside of a coven?
People do magic together. Usually when the coven gets together, you first do magic and then you have check-ins, because if you start with check-ins, you're never going to get to the magic. So we get together, we have a plan. We do some of the magic that we have planned. Maybe it's a group trance, maybe it's a healing for someone who's had a particularly difficult time within the group. Someone's had an injury or a loss or something like that. We might focus on the needs of that one person. We might do a seasonal ritual. We might do something political. We might do political magic. We might do magic to try and say, stop somebody who is out preying on women. We might do a spell for them to be caught. That would be another possibility, something that has a real life effect in the world. And I have definitely seen those things come to pass. Obviously, you want to be very careful about doing what you might call a hex type of magic. Most witches either won't do it or will only do it under the most dire of circumstances, but most witches just don't choose to go in that direction, because it's basically like taking rat poison and waiting for the rat to die.
Is a hex the same thing as a spell?
No, a spell is like any kind of a prayer. So a spell is, say, a healing spell, or we do a spell for the woman to have a healthy birth, or we do a spell for a person to have a good result from their surgery, or to find the love of their life, or something like that. A spell is for anything you want. It's a prayer. It's basically just an active prayer. A hex is something where you are actually wishing for harm for someone. And that's something that people worry about and think that witches do a lot. But in reality, people who understand energy are pretty clear that that's not what they want to do, because the energy moves through you first. So if you're bringing some destructive energy out into the world, well, guess who's getting the first dose? That would be you. So once you understand energy, you're not too tempted in that direction.
Where did the image of the witch on a broomstick come from? Like I've known many witches doing this show for the last 35 or 36 years, and they have been nothing but the kindest, sweetest, most wonderful people I have ever met. So where does the broom come from?
Well, the broom represents the union of male and female. You see, you have the end of the broom that looks phallic, and then you have the broom part that is like a woman's skirt. So it's the union of the masculine and the feminine.
Symbolism.
And people traditionally would jump over the broom during a marriage. The broom symbolized male and female, so it was traditionally used in a marriage, but it was also used to create ritual space, to clean anything negative out of the space. You would use the magic broom to do that, and then the space would be ready to start your magical action. I've also heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, but there's talk in our community that at one time, when witches were going off to, say, do a ritual in the woods, and it was the dangerous times where witches were being hunted, that they might take a broom with them, where the part that was hidden in the skirt-like part at the bottom was actually sharpened and could be used as a weapon if they were attacked. I don't know if that's true or not, but it would explain why they would be walking with their broom off into the woods. Was that they had a potential double use for it.
Are there ancient teachings or traditions you feel modern society has forgotten but desperately needs to remember in these days?
Oh, yes. I think most of it. I think one thing that desperately needs to be brought back is the love between men and women, and the deep respect for each other, and the union of male and female, and seeing that as as such an important part of our culture. And I don't mean, I don't mean that only heterosexuality is good. Please don't take it in that direction. But because the union of male female has to happen within us too. And that is one of the things that gay and trans people embody often, is that they themselves are the union of the male and female. And that's what all of us need to have, that union internally. And we also need to have respect for each other. And there has been so much respect lost for the divine feminine. And then the divine masculine has grown ashamed of itself. The divine masculine has been lost also as the masculine has turned to domination and violence as a means of control. Then we have lost the true heart of men, is then lost. And, men have those big shoulders and the big chest. The heart is the man's area. That is the man's sacred area. It's like women have the big hips. The womb is our sacred area. That's our magic. But men's magic is meant to be the heart. And that is something we need to get back to.
How can people prevent themselves then from emotionally and spiritually from getting negativity or receiving negativity from another person or a situation or a place where they are? How do you protect yourself?
You can imagine yourself. I like to imagine myself, with, inside maybe a spiral of light or a circle of light or an egg of light, something like that. So that anything, I can imagine it having a weave so that all the good things can come in, but all the bad things simply bounce off. You can visualize it in whatever way you like. Again, that's why we often cast a circle. We'll imagine a circle around us and receive protection in that way. You can put a bowl of salt water under your bed at night, to ward off nightmares and any kind of negative attack in the nighttime. You can do purification with salt water, with sage or other herbs. There's all sorts of ways to just do sort of a psychic hygiene.
I also understand that if you were to put salt around the perimeter of your home or your doorways, it would also keep the negative spirits out.
Yep, that's a way to go. Crystals are another way to go. Burying a crystal at each of the 4 directions around your house, or even more crystals if you want to do it that way. So yes, there's all sorts of ways to protect yourself, and I think so doing something like saging. And anytime you've been around other people, it doesn't matter if you think they're negative. You still want their energy still doesn't belong in your body, even if it's good energy. Right. It's not yours. So having a regular practice of using sage or salt water or something to smudge yourself when after you've been out or after you've been hanging out with people or anything like that, after you've been at work, so that you come home and you shift gears and shift into your own space without dragging everybody's energy in with you.
What are some beginner-friendly spiritual practices listeners can actually start practicing or doing today after listening to you here on the show?
I would recommend looking at getting a candle and lighting a candle. A candle represents all 4 elements in one. The candle itself is the earth, and the melted wax is the water.
Right.
There's the fire, and then of course the smoke coming out of it is the air. So I would recommend lighting a candle and gazing into the candle, and then asking your higher self, asking your allies, saying, please come to me, help me. I want to start on a spiritual path, or I want to start my spiritual path again. Please send me some images of what I need to do to be in my own power and to reclaim my own love. And then just breathe, look at the candle, see what you see. Maybe you'll actually see something in the flames. Maybe you'll close your eyes and see something else. Maybe you'll hear a voice. Have a little notepad with you so you can take some notes. See what it says to you.
It almost sounds as if you're scrying with the candle instead of the mirror.
Yep, candles are great for that. Fire is great for that.
Cerridwen, as always, whenever you're with us here, time goes by so fast. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight and for sharing your experience and for helping to make a wonderful difference in this world of ours. I thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Can I remind you that my latest book is called Rocket in My Pocket, and it's a memoir of my growing up from the space age, where my dad was a rocket scientist, to becoming a high priestess. And it's a very funny book, and we all need to laugh at this time.
Is it available on Amazon?
It is.
All right, Cerridwen, take care of yourself. Thank you so much for joining us. And Exo Nation, please visit her website at www.theheartofthefire.com. Hour number 1 is just finished, and we'll be back on the other side of this short break as hour number 2 commences right now here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the let me see, the CanCom Broadcast Network and your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM. And they stream us not only on air at AM 1220, but they also stream us at classic1220.ca. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Don't go away.
From shadows deep to stars above, in truth and mystery, what we